Hi there, everybody. My name is Sipho Ngwenya, and welcome to another episode of MultiTalks. Now, today I am honored to be joined by the legendary Mr. Bobby Heaney, who has played a pivotal role in growing the South African film and television industry. But today, he's here to talk to us about the MultiChoice Talent Factory, which is celebrating 10 years of cultivating the next generation of storytellers. Mr. Bobby Heaney, welcome to MultiTalks.
Sipho.
Hey, I knew you were going to call me that. There was something in me that says, Mr. Bobby Heaney is one of the only people who still calls me that. And you'll never let it.
Well, it's a great pleasure to see you.
Yeah, no, it's been a while. It's been a while.
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. There's a lot for us to catch up on. Of course, the great work that you've been doing with the MultiChoice Talent Factory.
Thank you.
But before we get there, Mr. Heaney, the crew who produced the show sent me your CV, right? And I was like, no, man, I know Mr. Heaney. You and I go, way back. And then I was quite fascinated by some of the things that I picked up there, which we'll talk about. But prior to that, like your journey and the time that you've given to this industry is quite remarkable and commendable. For those people out there who don't know like where you come from and why you actually entered this crazy industry of ours, just give us a bit of a background on that.
So I wanted to be an actor. So I trained at UCT and I was an actor for 4 or 5 years. I was a full-time actor. Then I started to have a family and realized, well, I'd better move on if I'm going to be able to put them through tertiary education. So I've got 5 children. And I started directing, and then I started in theatre and then in television, and became a television director and a theatre director. I've done over 50 stage productions, literally thousands of episodes of television, and gradually became a producer until I decided that it's time to stop and do something else, which is what I'm doing now.
And before you stopped, right? I mean, like you talk about these 50 stage productions and 1,000 episodes of film and TV. There's always this balance between, as an actor, your love for stage or acting for camera.
Yeah.
For you, where was the passion?
The passion is the actor. For me, what has made my life so incredibly rich is working with actors. And I can work with actors because I was an actor. I understand what an actor needs. So I regard myself as a performance director. I believe that I can get the very best out of people, even people like Sipho. We won't get into that. No, we've done good work together.
Of course, yeah.
And for me, it's all about performance. If you can get the performance from the actor, you're a director.
So now let's look at your repertoire, which obviously you've spoken about in terms of how wide it is. I'm also interested in terms of the variety in that. I mean, going from producing shows for Mnet like Ikoli to producing shows like Laugh Out Loud.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Igoli. I guess one of the things I'm most proud of is I started the first soap on the African continent. Mnet approached Frans Marx and said, please start the first soap in South Africa. There was no such a thing as a daily soap. And he came to me and said, you're a multi-camera director. Would you start Igoli? So I went across to New York, and you're way too young to remember a program called Loving.
Yep, definitely. Yeah.
Or All My Children. And I spent 10 days on the set in New York seeing how they shot it. And I brought back the system of shooting here in South Africa. And from day one on Igoli, we did an episode a day at a time when nobody had ever done that before. And what's wonderful for me is all of the soaps on the African continent actually have been born from Egoli. I'll tell you a story. I mean, part of the academies and the MultiChoice talent factories was I went to Nigeria, and there's a show there called Tinsel.
Yes, I know Tinsel. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I said to the guys, looking at Tinsel, I'd be interested to know if they shoot it the same way as we do.
Mm.
And the man running the academy at that time was sitting behind me, and he said, "Well, you can have a look at the script." And I looked at the script and I went,
Egoli.
This is the Egoli shooting style."
Yeah.
And he fell about laughing, and he said, "Yeah, I've been waiting for this moment for many years, because when they asked me to start Tinsel, what did I do? I went and spent 4 months on Egoli watching how you guys did it. And we brought the shooting system to there." So, and if you look at all of the soaps that are shot both here in South Africa and across the African continent, their basis is Egoli.
Now, Mr. Heaney, your life at Mnet, which MultiChoice now, runs quite deep. I mean, you have a great history with the founding member, Mr. Gosbeka. What role did he play in your life, particularly now in terms of you transitioning from producing and directing television and stage productions?
Again, an interesting story in that I suddenly started getting these strange invitations to go to Miss South Africa and be part of the celebrity. I've never been a front of camera person since I stopped acting all those years ago.
Yeah.
I've been behind the camera. I couldn't work out why I was getting these invitations. And finally, a whole bunch of us directors and producers were invited to Sun City for Miss South Africa. And we were taken into a room and told, "Okay, I suppose you're all wondering why you're here." And we all went, "Yeah." And they said, "Chris Becker wants to start an academy." And we're looking at some of the people in this room. And the lady in charge at that stage looked directly at me and said, "We want somebody to run this academy, but we need somebody to start it." So it was Chris Becker's idea. We've got this phrase, I hope he's not offended by it, he shouldn't be, which is KISS, Kursesua.
Okay.
So
Kursesua, it must happen.
It must happen. So that was 2014, and I worked very closely with Patricia van Rooyen at that time, and following on from her, Yelisa, and the top executives at that point. And they said, "What would you do for the academy? How would you design it?" And I said, "I know exactly what I want to do. It's what I did when I went and started Egoli. I went and watched how other people do it. And by watching what they did, I knew what was good and I knew what was bad, and I designed accordingly." So when we started the academy, I thought the way to do it is to put them on as many different productions as possible, our interns, and let them see how other people do it. And that's where they get the idea of, how would I be a producer? How would I be a director? By watching how other people do it. So the basis of the MultiChoice Talent Factory, which, as I'm sure you know, started as Magic in Motion. In the first 3 or 4 years, we were called Magic in Motion, Mnet's Magic in Motion, before we became MultiChoice Talent Factory. And the idea behind it is to put them in situ on professional productions and let them observe in the same way as I observed when they were doing Loving in New York, and came back and transferred that into Egoli. So by putting them in contact with the top people in the business and letting them see how different production companies do their work for the course of a year, they come out of the other end of it having a pretty good idea of how they might go about doing the same work.
Now, you're celebrating 10 years of the MultiChoice Talent Factory.
Amazing.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Now, has the vision changed
Yes, it has. I've been determined right from year one to let it develop. So it was very simple in that first year. I mean, we were trying it out, and it was very much more focused on just letting our guys go on professional productions for fairly extended periods. And I quickly realized that, no, what we need to do is put them on more productions for a shorter period to keep them on the move, if you like. And then the other part of it that developed very quickly in the first year, they'd said, you can make 2 movies a year. And I said, where's the money coming from? And they said, it's coming from your academy. And I thought about it and I thought, well, if we're making 2 movies for Mzansi Magic, Mzansi Magic's getting movies for nothing, too. So I went to Yolisa and I said, I'll do a deal with you. We're giving you 2 movies for nothing. She was obviously the starter of Mzansi Magic. And I said, we're giving you 2 movies for nothing. You give me the money for another 2 movies and you will get 4 movies for the price of 2. And she went, oh, yeah. So very much from that first year, we've been doing 4 movies a year. And that's the other major part of it, is the interns come out of their year in the academy with 4 movies under their belt. They are able to show the rest of the industry that actually they have directed something, DOP'd something, art directed something. Whereas when they come out of university, and this is the big difference, the main reason, is that when they come out of university and they go and try and find work, people say, what do you do? And they go, I'm a DOP. So, but if everybody laughs, they said, no, you're not. Go away and learn how to be a DOP. Whereas 1 year in the academy, they can genuinely say, I have done DOP work. I have actually got the credentials to be able to step up. And they get work much easier than if they came out of university, where the big problem and where we found the gap that needed to be filled with the academy was, how do you go from being in university or film school, how do you get your first job? And the MTF gives them a year's experience that enables them much more easily to get work.
And that's a great link, because I guess it's an important one for the industry, right? Because I mean, look, every producer who's going to bring someone onto their set needs some kind of guarantees, right? I guess not for everyone, right? Because sometimes you just need to give someone a break, but you don't want to risk a lot of your production, investment into talent who don't have no experience, right? So now I see the importance of this program. But look, I also get, and I'm glad you're here today, I get so many messages on LinkedIn, from people who reach out to me and say, how can I be a part of the MultiChoice Talent Factory, and what is the criteria?
You have to apply. The criteria is quite strict, because we have over 1,000 entries per year.
Over 1,000. It's just SA or
just in South Africa. And we boil that down to 14 people. So you got to make sure that the 14 that you finally end up with really deserve to be there. So number one, they need to have done some kind of film course, some kind of degree, diploma, whatever, that shows their real commitment and passion for the industry. And then we take those people and we give them a year's internship. That is what I like to call 10 years experience in one, because we really do drill them very hard for that year and put them in every facet of film and television making, so that they understand when they come out of it the entire process of making a movie from conception, conceptualizing a story, writing a story, pitching a story, getting it accepted, going through the entire process leading up to the filming of it. they shoot the movies entirely by themselves under my guidance and come out of the other end of it with a movie that is broadcast nationally. I mean, where can you get that? 4 movies in their first year. So the experience that they get during the course of that year is literally fast-tracking you.
And tell me now some of the disciplines. Do you cover all the disciplines that are involved in creating
Yes.
film?
Absolutely all of them. And that's one of the things that is starting to develop. You said, how has it been changing? One of the things we're realizing, well, MultiChoice is realizing it. At first they said, please tell them they're not coming to work in MultiChoice. We don't want a whole bunch of guys arriving on our doorstep saying, you trained us, now employ us. But that started to change a little bit as they realize the value of having somebody who has done every facet of making a television program, becoming a commissioning editor or becoming a junior commissioning editor. We've realized that there's an area of producing that needs work. A lot of the people who come to the academy want to be the creatives. They want to be the director.
Yeah.
But when it comes to how do you run a business, how do you manage a budget, how do you keep within your shooting schedule, that's the harder part of it. And we've now started to identify those areas and focus 2 or 3 of the interns in that area, spending less time in the other areas. Whereas when I first started, my intention was to let them know every facet of filmmaking, everybody. And now I'm going, no, well, everybody needs to basically understand it, but they don't need to be in the wardrobe department necessarily.
Real.
Or continuity, even though continuity is a really important part of our industry. Identify 2 or 3 of them that you say, okay, you're definitely going to be going on the camera route. You're going to be going on the producing route. You're going to be going on the art direction route, and focus them a little bit more. But at the end of it, even with that focus, everybody comes out of the other end of it knowing, how do you make a television program? Right now, I say to you, Sipho, come up with a concept for a movie, please. 52-minute movie. And I'll give you 2 or 3 days, and you come back and you present to me. And then we go through it, all 14 of them. And then from that into, how do you now take that concept and turn it into a viable 52-minute story? And how do you pitch it? And how do you dress it? And how do you cast it? And how do you shoot it? How do you post-produce it? How do you, the things that people don't really think about? How do you, what do you do when you deliver your program? There's a whole lot of stuff that needs in terms of contract to go with that, including your final control sheet. What does it look like? So that all of the people who come through the academy, you ask them now, the guys who graduated yesterday, you ask them, what is the process of creating a movie? They can tell you from beginning to end. Whereas most people in this industry, and I include myself, you're so busy concentrating on your area of interest that you don't know what a makeup artist does really. You don't know what troubles a wardrobe mistress goes through, what continuity, why is it so difficult? Because you're so busy concentrating on your area that you don't focus on what other people do. And I think the big thing about the Academy 10 years in one is, if you understand how everybody else suffers when they work on a production, then you, when you're in charge, can be much more empathetic and understanding of their problems.
That is such a beautiful way of looking at it, Mr. Heaney. I think it's actually a very important element in terms of just not just creating something, right? Just for you having respect for somebody else's input into that production.
I'm glad you said that word.
Yeah.
There are 2 words I use all the time. The one is passion. The other one is respect. If you respect the people you're working with, you're going to be a person that people want to work with.
Correct.
Because the other word that I constantly use is attitude. If you've got the correct attitude, you're going to get the job. For every job that is out there, you've got 15, 20 people or more wanting that job. So why should you be at the front of the queue? By having the correct attitude, by having respect for everybody that you work with, and by having passion. And if you've got those three things, you've got a good chance of making it.
I can just hear the passion oozing through you as you speak. Is that now the same passion that has made you and your team take the same concept and adapt it for the African continent? I mean, now it's in Nigeria, Kenya, Zambia.
Yes. So, I mean, nobody knew if this academy was going to work. That is very interesting that in that first year I said, can I have a business card? And they very carefully put 2015 on the business card to make sure that,
Yeah.
in other words, I think they expected me to be there for a year, which would have been fair enough. The fact that it worked and went into the second year, they went, hang on, this might be valuable for Africa. So I then traveled to Nigeria and to Kenya and to Lusaka, and we started having a look at how is it different in those countries? How can we adapt the MultiChoice Talent Factory, or as it was then, Magic in Motion? How can we adapt it to their country's situations? Because we're very different in that we've got a lot of productions on the go at any one time. And when we first started there, that was not the case with Nigeria, with Kenya and Lusaka. So we had to adapt it. And in the third year, we started those academies. We chose the academy directors. And it was fantastic to watch the excitement building in those countries. And it's even more fantastic to look back now, the 5, 6, 7 years that they've been going compared to our 10, and see how they have developed and how the industry has developed along with those academies.
I'm sure it's amazing, and you've got plenty of stories to tell us about, those initiatives. But what would you say are the challenges that are faced for you in each of the regions in implementing the same strategy from South Africa?
I think we've got a stronger base from which to work. We've got, as I say, a lot of productions on at any one time, and there was little support, particularly in Kenya and Zambia and the surrounding regions. There was little governmental support for that, and they needed to understand just how valuable it was to get their own productions going. And once they started going, then the industry began to go. But there's still a long way to go for some areas. I mean, one of the ladies from Lusaka who recently visited us lives in Namibia. And still in Namibia, there's very little television going. And it's only as people realize just how valuable it is that they start getting more and more governmental interest. And once you get that, then it starts to build. But I really believe that MultiChoice through MIM and now MTF has done an incredible amount of work in developing the film and television industry in the African continent.
And now, Mr. Heaney, let's now talk more about the value that is, produced for the industry as a whole. We know that you have the 14 that graduated yesterday, but as you said, not all of them are going to be guaranteed jobs at MultiChoice. So then what does the road look like for them after that?
So, number one, how did they make work for themselves? Number two, how did they create companies that can create work for their colleagues? And that is what became very clear yesterday in the graduation. Is we had an alumni talking about how the alumni family is working together now to provide work for each other. So number one, There's a family that they can join that gives them the support that is so badly needed. Number two, they have a much better idea of how to start generating their own stories and their own work. And number three, and I think this is a vitally important one, is they know how to do it sustainably. The big problem that we found 10, 15 years ago is there's a number of people who really wanted to start their own production companies that had no idea how to sustain it. So the things that we do in the Academy is, how do you work within budget? How do you work within your schedule? If you're able to do those two things, you've got a chance of keeping your company alive more than just one production. What used to happen a lot was these young companies would start up and a year later they'd be gone, because the people running them had no idea how to actually work within the very limited budgets that they were given. Whereas now, there's a number of them out there who have not only done it 1 or 2 or 3 or more productions, but they're still around and they're providing work for other people. So I think, again, it's the attitude of respect. Don't work people 14, 15 hours a day, 5 days a week. You must finish your production on time each day so that the people remain fresh and can produce good work. You must remain within budget so that channel goes, oh, these guys were able to do it within the limited budget. We'd better give them another production, and those people continue to work. So we're creating a new attitude to how to be sustainable, how to produce good work, but at the same time remain within the limited time and budgets.
And now talk to us about, the longevity of this program, Vision 2035. What more do you see happening?
I think where we're moving into right now is exciting for me, in that the MultiChoice family is having a look at what we are providing and going, how can we better sustain ourselves? How can we utilize some of the people coming out of the Academy? It's what I was saying. Initially, they said, don't send them to us, please. Now they're saying, hang on, these guys. And this morning, I received an email from the Content Hub saying, can you give us a list of the people who are graduating and their areas of interest? We've got some productions coming up where we believe we can plug them in. That's amazing. And that's ultimately what we want to do. Is we've looked at extended cut, which is how do you support the people coming out of MTF? But further than extended cut, how do we plug them into the companies that are out there who are going to be doing productions, who are looking for good people with good attitude, who know what they're doing?
As more talent, you produce new talent, into the industry. There's obviously a finite, jobs available, right? But second to that, I also look at, for instance, multicam. Multicam, in my view, is kind of like becoming a thing of the past, because you see soapies, a lot of soapies are not getting the same commissioning, that they used to get. We've seen, I think Siva Delan is no longer, I think there was a time on Mubango, there's Istingo, so it's now more on, the single cam type of, industry. What happens there? Because, with multicam, you need 3 cameras, you need 3 crew. Now you just need 2 cameras. So that's where I'm going with this.
No, I tell you, it's a big challenge, because you're absolutely right. When I started Degoli and based it on the American model, 3 cameras was the standard, boy. And within 7, 8, 9 years, the producers were looking and going, I can do without that middle camera. I can do without the third one. Yeah, the guys have to work a little bit harder. And now it's moving into the era where there are other things happening. He's not going to say the word AI, but that kind of thing. When it comes to writing and producing work, there's less need for the people that you had before. In a sense, it's like when you have the Steadicam operators. You couldn't do a major move without a Steadicam in those days. Where are the Steadicam operators today? Because now you've got this little drone that flies around, or you've got the little gimbal that anybody can operate. And what's happened to those guys? I guess what it boils down to is you've got to keep ahead of the curve. In the same way as MultiChoice has got to keep ahead of the curve with all of the streaming platforms
and the piracy.
Absolutely, yeah. So I don't know. It's a challenge, and I guess I can smile because it's no longer a challenge I have to worry too much. But it is a problem for the people coming in.
Correct.
Because you're right. It's finite. How many people are you churning out year after year after year? What are those people doing? And the people who are going to succeed are those who stay ahead of the curve. Where is it going to be needed? Where are they going to be needed next? And make themselves fit for that purpose.
Now, let's just go back a bit and just from you being this producer, director, actor, to now stepping into these shoes, what have been some of your greatest learnings, in this time?
I really miss directing. And it was a tough decision at the time when we were all put in that room and they said, who wants to do this? And they kind of fixed on me. And I had to ask myself and my darling Julia, my wife, do I want to do this? I gave up some of my goals. I gave up some of my dreams, particularly in the directing of feature films. But if I look back now and I go, what have I achieved? I believe that I have moved things forward in our industry in a way that really is of benefit. There's a difference to whether you have placed one or two people in the industry, but when you start to look at the volume that we have now run through the MultiChoice Talent Factory of over 140 people who are out there with the right attitude and the right passion and the opportunity, I believe that has, we've seen it. There are some directors out there now who are top of their game, who came out of our academy less than 10 years ago. So ultimately, I think that what I did was right in terms of plowing back into an industry that has given me a lifelong dream job. Starting as an actor, then directing, then producing, and actually loving every minute of what I do. It's the price of giving up the directing in order to be able to give a lot of other people the opportunity and fast tracking the valuable change that's happened in this country. I think it's all been worth it.
I'm sure there was a period in your life, and you cannot deny this, with the responsibility of being videographer for Mr. Nelson Mandela for 10 years. I'm sure that kept you up at night.
You know how that happened? I got a phone call one day. I was producing stuff, and I got a phone call from Zelda Lagrange, Nelson Mandela's right-hand person. What are you doing? I said, what do you mean, what am I doing? She said, can you get here to the Nelson Mandela? Have you got a camera? I said, yeah. She said, bring your film crew. I need you here now. And I dropped everything and I grabbed Trevor Brown, a DOB, And I said, bring your camera. And I got a sound person. I said, come. And we were there 10 minutes later. And she said to me as we arrived, where's your crew? I said, this is my crew. And she said, no, where's your crew? I said, no, there's me. I'm the director. Here's my DOP. Here's my sound person. What do you need us to shoot? And we shot it. And at the end of it, she said, you are the first team that's arrived here without having 15 hangers on, because everybody wanted to meet Madiba.
Correct.
And she phoned me a few days later and said, can you come again? And again, I arrived just with the 4 of us. And she said, from today, you're Nelson Mandela's videographer.
What a privilege.
And it lasted 10 years.
That's
It was the most incredible thing in my life to work with that man.
That's amazing.
Every time he walked into the room, I would be moved afresh by the extraordinary personality that he was.
Mr. Heaney, this has been such a great conversation. I really, really appreciate your time, but most importantly, I appreciate all the effort and the time and the selflessness that you've put into this industry, and especially raising the future of the industry itself. I don't think there's any more that you could have done, and especially with the sacrifices that you've made. It's really commendable, and I wish you all the best.
When you say sacrifice, I don't think it as a sacrifice. It's what I actually said yesterday at the graduation. It's a privilege. It's a privilege that I've been granted, that I can make an impact in our industry, in our country, at a time when we need some positive. And the privilege of being part of that positive is worth everything that I've given. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been an honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.